Okay, so it's 15 years later. And for those of you that don't know, it is 15 years since Scott Peterson was convicted of killing his pregnant wife, Laci Peterson. Now, I am not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not one of those people. Like, maybe I am. Who knows? I'm whatever. But I'm kind of a person who's into this sort of shit. And this channel has gone through many iterations. I'm just going to use it to rant and talk about weird shit. I don't really care who comes along. Like, if you want to come, that's great. If you don't, like, whatever. But I just need a place to talk about all the weird shit that goes on in my mind. So I'm going to talk about this today. I want to talk about Scott Peterson and Laci Peterson and the murders and what the fuck happened there. Y'all, when this happened in 2004 when he was convicted, all right? When this happened, I feel like I was just like everybody else. Like, oh, this shit is nasty, but it'll get you fucked up. It's 10% alcohol in this 16 fluid ounce can of some kind of premium drinks Club Tails. This is not sponsored, by the way, but if you're like wanting to get kind of faded without spending a lot of money, this will be what you reach for. It's the day before payday. So anyway, the whole case, like looking at this now from when it was happening, blows your fucking mind, because this entire case hinged on three things. The first was that Scott Peterson was a douchebag. He cheated on his wife. The second thing that hinged on was that his wife was pretty and she was dead. And the third thing it hinged on was that his wife was pretty, she was dead, and she was pregnant. Now, this whole thing makes me so afraid of the American justice system. And, I'm one of those people that tries to believe in true justice and all that shit, but I just don't feel like this was handled well at all. So what happened is basically Scott Peterson goes fishing, comes home, like eats a snack, takes a fucking shower, his wife's not home. After he showered and done a few things and realizes she's not home, calls a family member. I think it's his sister. I can't remember if it's his sister or his mom, because it's been a little bit since I saw like that part of it. I legit was just watching like the entire trial, like all of it all over again. And when I watched it all over again, it gave me chills, because I was like, damn, I never want to get in the grips of the American justice system, because you can get fucked really, really hard. Because like so he calls and they're like, no, she's not here. So he calls the police and is like, yo, my wife's missing. And then they show up and then they're just like, he was shifty. He wasn't acting right. And he was doing this and he wasn't doing all the things he needed to do. So they never find anything that proves he killed her. Not one damn thing. Nothing. Everything they had, I wouldn't even call this shit circumstantial. It's so far out of the realm of circumstantial. Like it's beyond circumstantial. There's no sign of a struggle. There's no sign of blood. There's nothing. There's one hair on a rusted pair of pliers. That's all that fucking, y'all, do you understand? One hair on a rusted pair of pliers that belonged to his wife. And it was like their things. Those were their things. So the reason that this boggles my mind is because when you look at what happened, what really freaks me out is that there could legitimately be a dude out there living his best life after he has murdered this woman and her child. I'm just saying, he could be out there living his best life, getting away with murder. Now, I'm not saying that Scott Peterson didn't do it, but I'm saying they didn't find a good way to prove he did do it. So when you watch this documentary, it's on Hulu right now. It's called The Murder of Laci Peterson. It's like 15 episodes, okay? So if you have Hulu, watch the shit, because you're going to get just as boggled and fucked off as I did. Because when it came out, when this blew up, like everybody was like, oh, this motherfucker, because he cheated on his wife. So we'll get there. The point is, I know when a husband or wife goes missing, automatically the person that we look to is going to be the spouse. That's automatic. Everybody does. That's how it works, because there's something like 90% of murders are committed by people you fucking know. So obviously, if I had a roommate and they disappeared, they'd be like, Audra, where are they? And I'd be like, I don't fucking know. So the point is, um, so from start to finish, this thing is handled poorly by the Modesto Police Department. I don't have any stake in this, so I can say whatever I want. And these are just my opinions. I am not like going after anybody, but here's what I'm gonna tell you. It was handled poorly from them from the jump. From the jump, they show up, they've decided he's shifty because he's not acting the way he's supposed to. Because he didn't immediately call them when he got home and noticed she wasn't home. They're like, she's 8 months pregnant. Okay, so let me just get real here. I have been married. I was married for 10 years. And let me tell you that if I came home and my husband wasn't home, it never occurred to me to immediately call the police. Like, what kind of shit is that? Who's going to do that? You know what I mean? Like, even if he was 8 months pregnant, it would not occur to me to immediately call the police and be like, I came home, he's not home. And the reason that freaks me out is like, if you have roommates right now, and I had roommates too. So after I got divorced, I had roommates. Same deal. It would never have occurred to me to call the police immediately if I noticed they weren't home. Like it just wouldn't, because real life dictates a few things. So number one, if you're married, most married people are going to tell you that if they come home and the other person's not home, it's like a fucking boon. You're like, yes, I got the house to myself for a little bit. Especially if you've been married for a while, you're like, fuck, yes, I get to diddle myself for a little bit. Sorry, that might be too much information, but you're like, I get to diddle myself for a little bit. I get to like eat some snacks, those hidden snacks that you have when you live with people. You have hidden snacks. Don't lie. Everybody has hidden snacks. You're like, I get to eat my hidden snacks and put it away and just have some peaceful time without the other asshole in the house. Like, you love them, but at the same time, like, you're glad to have your own space. So with that said, if I got home, my husband wasn't home. After I did all the things and I took a shower and I was like looking around, I'd be like, where the hell is he? At that point, I'd be like, that's weird. Why isn't he home? And then I would call him and be like, what's up? Then I'd call some of his friends and be like, is he over there with you? And if they were like, no, I'd be like, okay. And I would actually be calling, in my situation, I'd have been calling the police to see if he was in jail. But the point is, I would have called the police after that. But that could have been 6 hours later. Like, I'm being honest. That really could have been 6 hours from the time I got home to the time I actually called the police. Because in real life, that's how people act. Like, we do not run around in real life, coming home, walking around, being like, babe, you home? Let me call those police. Like, that's not how it works. We know people leave. We know people have errands. She was close to her family. She was close to her friends. The dog was home. So the way that he looked at it was like, if the dog was gone, he would have been like, she's walking the dog. So the dog's home, her shit's there. So he's thinking, all right, well, she's probably like gone over to a friend's house. She's probably walked over. She's maybe with my sister, whatever the fuck. Like, he's not concerned, and most people wouldn't be concerned. So when he finally does call the thing or report to the police, they're upset that he's like not acting upset enough in this moment, because she's 8 months pregnant. No, he's not acting upset right now, because as far as he's concerned, he's still, like, most people would still be in the mindset that, like, maybe everything's fine. You don't want to fucking get yourself in a panic immediately. Like, you don't want to be like me, who panics like the second things go wrong. I'm that person who's like, ah, and I freak out and I'm like, everything's gone wrong and I can't handle life. But you don't want to be like that. And even if you are like that, you're like, I can't act like that. I have to calm the fuck down and think clearly and think about all the things and all the places that they could be, which is exactly what he did. He thought clearly and started thinking, like, where the fuck could she be? And starts calling friends and family. And when she's not fucking answering the fucking phone, he's like, oh shit. Okay, well, she's not in any of these places. So, she isn't here. And now I got to figure out what's going on with her. So they come and they're immediately like, he's acting shifty, all this shit. But they're not really putting the blame on him at this point. Through it all, he is still trying to find his wife. Now, I will tell you this. Everybody processes fucking grief and loss differently. And a lot of these people who claim that they can do body language and all this shit, the thing about body language, most people won't tell you this, But a large amount of the people who actually study this shit, they don't take a one video of somebody being shifty and like base their whole thing on that, because that doesn't give you a good baseline. You can't get a baseline on the motherfucker from like the one time you saw them, because you have no idea what they were going through. You would need to see several videos of that, how that person's demeanor is, how they walk, how they talk, to be able to tell the differences in the changes in them, because everybody doesn't lie the same. Everybody doesn't, you like, they don't. There are certain aspects of lies and all that shit that are the same, but there's demeanors that are different, that are to that person. There are things that people do and say that are to that person, and if you don't watch the person enough, you can't judge every single person's body language, because there are literally people who have like no expression, no feeling, no nothing, and you would not be able to tell like what the hell's going on with that person. Like, I've worked with people before, and I'm pretty good with people, but I've worked with people before where I'm like, are you okay? Because it doesn't seem like you're alive. Like, I had a neighbor that I almost shot once. Like, don't come for me, but like, I watch a lot of horror films, and she was outside and she had on a robe, and she was standing really, really still. And if you've seen any zombie apocalypse movie, you know that's how it starts, with the neighbor outside in a robe, and then she comes at you. Rah! So there was like a moment where I was like, I need to get the gun and shoot her. But then she moved normally and everything was fine. But what I'm saying is, everybody's body language is different. Everybody interprets things different. And I didn't know that neighbor well enough to know that she just came outside and stood like that. So my interpretation of her body language that was that like she was a fucking zombie. But the point is, I wouldn't know if you were just looking at that one moment in her life and her in that time, you would not be able to judge her character. So he's sitting here just kind of trying to like go with the flow and like not, what I would say is not fucking panic, not freak the fuck out. And not everybody cries. Not everybody's like, oh, fighter. Like, not everybody does that. And the thing about that is, if he had done that, I think it would have turned out the fucking same. If he had like burst out crying and all this, they would have been like, he's putting on an act. Because here's the thing about this case. The biggest point in this case was that she was a pretty pregnant woman. She was a beautiful pregnant woman. And the fucking guns were on at that point. This is not a case where you can afford to not find the killer, right? This is not a case where you can afford to not find the person who did this. Because when things like this happen, when you meet the criteria, which they talk about in the special, but when you meet the criteria, you're pretty, you're rich, you have a good story. Like, when you meet all that criteria, the media is there. So the media shows up for this. They're like, what the fuck? Where's Laci Peterson? Oh my God, there's a pregnant woman. And also the holidays were coming. She's like missing right before Christmas. She's a pregnant woman missing right before Christmas. This is not some shit that you could just be like, we'll figure it out. So there's pressure. And I'm not saying like, I will say that for the cops. There's a lot of fucking pressure. Whenever that happens, this is why shit goes wrong. This is why the American justice system is so fucked up. Because whenever the media shows the fuck up and is like, whoa, it becomes a nationwide sensation. It is everywhere. And the hunt is on. And nobody's going to let this go. Nobody. Black, white, Latino, nobody's letting this shit go. A beautiful pregnant woman goes missing right before Christmas. Ain't nobody just gonna be chill with it being an unsolved mystery. We gotta figure out who the fuck did this. We've gotta find her. Like, we gotta find her, right? But as the time goes on, we start realizing we're not gonna find her. Her whole person shit is in the house, and now we're starting to realize this is an abduction. And once that comes into play, they're immediately looking at Scott. Now, there's all this other evidence of a robbery in the house across the street that never really made it anywhere. But there was a robbery in the house across the street. Scott was gone. Scott was fishing. Okay? Scott's fishing. It's a robbery in the house across the street. Laci's walking the dog. He remembers things about that day. And here's the thing about lying. And I'm not going to go into huge detail about everything, but let me tell you this about lying. Lying is hard as fuck. And people don't realize that lying is hard as fuck. The number one reason that lying is hard is because you have to come up with a story. So you come up with a story. So like, if you're a teenager, right, and you want to go to a fucking party, and you know that there's going to be drinking and all this shit, and you don't want your mom to not let you go to the party, you've got to come up with an excuse for where you're going. So what do? You come up with a story. So your story is like, hey, you're sitting there and you're like, okay, I got to tell my mom that I'm studying for a test, and That's where I'm going. Going over to Julia's house to study for a test, right? That's the lie you've come up with. This is why lying is hard, because you go over, you're like, hey, mom, I'm going over to Julia's house to study for a test. And your mom goes, oh, really? What test? Now you're kind of fucked off because you didn't plan that part of your lie. This is why lying is hard, because you come up with a story, but most people do not come up with all the details and the background of the story. That's why lying is hard. This is why if you watch any police dramas, any police stories, any of that shit, this is why, like any true crime doc, it's why these people fold like a fucking house of cards when they get in that room. The reason that these people fold, and I'm not talking about the like people who are wrongly convicted. I'm talking about the people who did this shit. They admitted they did this shit, and they end up talking about it in some other special later about why they did it and how they're like trying to get their shit together now and how they admit they're wrong, blah, blah. But the reason they fall apart is because lying is hard. You build a story. You suddenly fucking murder somebody, and you have to come up with what happened to them and why, right? You have to be like, oh, the last time I saw them, okay, I murdered my wife. The last time I saw her was this time, and she stormed out of the house, and I haven't seen her since then, right? Like that's the lie you come up with. But as the police start asking you questions, you have to keep adding to your lie. But because it's a lie, you cannot remember every aspect of it. You can't remember every piece of the lie, which is why police officers often go back and ask you questions about that story in non-sequential order to catch your ass and trip you up, because you're gonna get tired, you're gonna get where you can't remember what the fuck you said, and finally you're just gonna be like, okay, like fuck, I murdered her, like damn, I just didn't. That's why these people fold, because lying is hard. Anybody who's ever tried to lie, and all of us have, everybody's tried to lie, it's hard because you can't keep a hold of the story. As you try to add in the details, it gets harder. And even with premeditated murder, even if you plan it, people still can't do it right, because you put together a story. Because you made a story, you cannot build all the details. It's too much to remember. You can only put a certain amount of shit together, and then from there you're like, I'm golden. But as soon as people start trying to get into the nitty gritty of those details, you're fucked. That's what happens every time. Here's the thing about Scott Peterson. He never changed his story. He never got caught up. He never got confused about the details. And in fact, he was good with his details. He remembered specific shit, and he never wavered on that shit. He was like, I was watching Martha. We were watching Martha Stewart, and it had something about meringue, which the cops conveniently left the fuck out. By the way, they left that shit out, and they're like, there was never anything with meringue. In fact, there was. And that shit came to court, and it was like, boom, bitch, got you. But what really fucked this shit up, what really destroyed everything, was that he had an affair. This is the heart of the whole fucking story. He has an affair with Amber Frey. Amber Frey. However the fuck you want to say her name, because they say it both ways in this special, and everybody was saying it like a gazillion ways at the time. They're like, Amber Frey, pretty blonde lady, right? But she wasn't as pretty as Laci, according to the press. They ripped her a new one at some point. This is where shit got fucked off. And this is where everybody just went after him. And this is where the court of public opinion fucking convicted him. This is why I don't want to get caught up in the American justice system, because this is such a big case. Go Bear, new toy. This was such a big case. And it all really hinged on one fact. One, that he hooked up with another chick. And by the way, this wasn't like an affair. Let's get into the details of that. It wasn't like a huge affair. He probably saw her a handful of times. He wasn't seeing this bitch for like 37 years. He wasn't seeing her for 6 months. He wasn't seeing her for a whole year. They weren't like having like 87 rendezvous. They had like 4 or 5 dates. All right. Yes. Did he take pictures like an idiot? You're damn right. And did he talk about it when he was like talking to the police? No. Do you know why he didn't? And this is just my theory. My theory is he said that there were no problems in his marriage. And the reason he said that is because he still thought she would be alive. He still thought Laci would be found alive. And if she was found alive or found somewhere, and maybe she had just got mad or whatever, he thought, if she doesn't know that I had an affair, it'll be chill. Yes, later in an interview with Diane Sawyer, I believe he did say that he told her about that, but I think he's lying. That's the one thing I think that he truly did lie about in the whole thing. I think he lied about telling Laci that he had an affair. I think he lied about that, and the reason I think he lied about that is because he had to come up with a reason for fucking Amber being there and undermining him. And by the way, recording conversations and fucking trying to catch his ass and have a gotcha moment without him knowing. She just kept like prodding and prodding, and all the times that she prodded and she poked and she went after him and tried to be like, you didn't tell me this, you didn't tell me that. I mean, I actually feel bad for the guy because he was dumb enough not to really hear when she was talking to him. Like, I would have heard that shit. Like, bitch, why are you yelling out dates? She's like, you told me on December 9th. I would have been like, why would you remember that? And why are we talking in dates right now? Are the police on this phone? Click. But no. But she's like yelling out dates and all this stuff. But the whole time she's trying to gotcha moment him, he never wavers. He never changes his mind. And in fact, several times states that he's still trying to find Laci. So this whole case boiled down to the fact that old dude stepped out on his pregnant wife. That's it. He got sucked into the American justice system, sucked into the court of public opinion, fucked off because he had the audacity to have an affair. Like, think about that for a second, because they didn't find anything except for that one hair. They didn't find a drop of blood, and their claims, the prosecution claims that Scott killed Laci in their house. Now, I don't know about you. I don't know about you, but I do know this. I do know my true crime like a motherfucker. I do know survival. I have survived assaults. I have fought. Like, if I was 16 years old, a grown man tried to hold me down and kiss him. Kissed me, and I fought with every fucking ounce of strength I had in me because I did not want my first kiss to be with some creepy old man. And I won that battle. He did not get to kiss me. I fucking fought. I pushed. I elbowed. I did everything I could to live. Now, let me tell you what. If a pregnant woman had her husband trying to smother her ass, she would fight with every fucking thing she was worth. There's no fucking way she would go down without a fucking fight. And let me tell you something about that too. If he tried to do that, you can't clean up murder. This isn't Dexter, motherfuckers. This isn't Dexter. Like, real life, you can't clean that shit up. You can't clean up the struggle. You can't clean up the spit. Like, if he tried to smother her, what the fuck did he smother her with? Like, explain that. What did he smother with it? His hand? There were no bite marks on his hand. There were no scratches on his body. So what did he smother her with? Did he smother her with a pillow? Even then, where were the scratches of her trying to struggle to survive? Like, where was that? And then even if he did that, there's zero anything. And they're like, the house smelled like bleach. I'm like, okay, but he did say that she was mopping earlier that day. So if it smelled like bleach, okay, but that's weird that a pregnant woman was using bleach, but all right. And then later, all these people said they never smelled any bleach now. So what the fuck? So I am so, like, I feel like that guy was banned. I don't feel like he got a fair trial. I do not feel like he got a fair trial. I think that the media is one of those things. When it is for you, it lifts you up. It brings you to the forefront. It's like, yes, bitch. But the second they get their talons in you, and that Nancy Grace is a piece of shit, ain't she? She's like, I liked it. And that thing, she's like, you listen, those tapes are like a fine wine. Every time you listen to them, they get better. You know what, bitch? You didn't. So here's the thing. I feel like people just sat there and just really twisted everything, and all of it. The whole thing that he got convicted of, he didn't get convicted of murder. They can say that all fucking day. He got convicted of being a bad fucking husband. That's what he got convicted of. Because they never actually proved without a shadow of a doubt that he murdered his wife. There's zero evidence anywhere that he killed her. None. He has receipts for being at the fucking boathouse like he said he was. And really, I don't think it would have killed him to divorce her if he wanted to divorce her. Like, but I don't think he wanted that either. I think, like, he even said it himself. like many a person, not just men, because people like to say that shit. Oh, men are dogs. Not everybody's a dog. Everybody has a vanity. And if you've been with someone for a long time, there's like this part of you, whether you act on it or not. I'm not saying everybody cheats. What I'm saying is whether you act on it or not, everybody has a vanity. There's a part of you that needs to feel that you are still attractive. Some people act on it, a lot of people don't. But there's a part of you that needs to feel that, especially because I know a lot of people who've gone through this. Pregnancy is hard as fuck, and it becomes very difficult at later dates in the pregnancy where sex is not really an option. The person is tired, and it's not anything to do with them. It's to do with you. Like, you just feel like maybe you're not as attractive as you once were. You're not as sexy and virile. And when someone gives that attention to you, like, hey, like, did he say that he had lost his wife? Yes. Was that a dick move? Yes. But you know what he was really doing was manipulating this bitch. Like, yes, he was manipulative. Yes, he was. But he did nothing different than any other person who cheats. And men often use the "my wife is dead" thing to cheat. Do you know why? Because in this day and age of fucking Google and all that shit, especially that it was 2004 when this happened. So in a day and age when people can like look up information, all this shit, if you just say "my wife is dead," like, you don't have to worry. Like, they're not even going to try to search you. They're going to be like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." Like, nobody tries to research that because you're like, "Oh, I don't know about all that. I don't." That makes me feel bad. Like most people do. Most people be like, "That makes me feel bad. I'm not gonna look that up." So like that's the best way to get the poo-tang. Like, you just like be like, "My wife is dead." And then you don't have to worry about some chick trying to contact your wife and ruin your marriage if you still want to have a marriage, which a lot of people who cheat still want their marriage. They just want the shit on the side and also their marriage. That's why they have a whole side piece and then a whole meal at home. That's why that works that way, because they just don't even want to do that shit. But anyway, y'all let me know what you think in the comments. Watch that fucking special. Get woke for a second, because I don't know. They never prove without a shadow of doubt that he murdered her, and I don't feel good about that. I really feel like he is in prison. He's been there for 15 years because he fucked another chick while his wife was pregnant. That's it, y'all. Have a good day.